It is great to be back with you. It also was good to be away, and this morning I want to share with you some of the things that I was doing while I was gone, particularly this past week. Last Sunday, I arrived in Charlotte, North Carolina, which, by the way, is warm and has many flowers blooming and azaleas and little goslings, and it really feels like spring has burst forth, and it was a little shocked to come back, although a few weeks ago we were in Minnesota, 3 weeks ago, and it was snowing to beat the band, so we've been around several places. But this past week, I was in Charlotte and returned Thursday evening. Some of you know a year ago I began a 3-year term on the National Board of the Presbyterian Multicultural Network. And our PMN board, the Presbyterian Multicultural Network Board, was meeting in Charlotte last week with several staff members from our national offices in Louisville. And we were having a collaborative meeting between multicultural and cross-cultural ministries and evangelism and church growth offices in Louisville, all of which, cross-cultural, multicultural, evangelism, and church growth, I think are very pertinent and important in the life of our congregation, particularly at this time. And I learned a good deal more about a new focus in our denomination. You might be hearing a lot about 1001. You might simply hear 1001. You might simply see 1001. Or you might hear 1001 worshiping communities or 1001 new worshiping communities. And you'll probably hear a lot about that over the next 10 years. And I was excited to see the efforts of the PCUSA, of our denomination, to take on new and varied church forms in order to meet the changing culture in which we are living and to help to meet the changing spiritual needs of our people. I returned feeling hopeful and excited and with good news to share. But, of course, the news wasn't all good. Our denomination currently is losing membership at the rate of 49,000 people per year, which is better than when we were losing 60,000 per year. But still, the PCUSA is losing 49,000 members a year. That's 4,083 members a month, 942 members a week. We're losing 135 members a day. So we're losing about 5.6 members every hour of every day on average. Last week, we talked about our denomination and how in our denomination it is the worst of times and it is the best of times. And the way I see it, sometimes before the people of God can move up, we have to sit on a plateau of stagnation, or even slide down the slippery, slidey slope of deep decline for a long time. Sometimes, before we can have new vision, we have to stare at old things for a while, even look over the cliff into the abyss, to get honest and real about what is happening around us and in our midst. And sometimes, after a while, our eyes and ears open to the obvious that was there all the time, and the way forward begins to become clear. That is what I think is happening in many places all across this country with the Presbyterian Church USA. We are putting people and money resources into starting 1,001 new worshiping communities throughout this country in the next 10 years. Several of these worshiping communities already are well on their way, and I want to share one of them with you now. We hope.
We never meant to start a church. About 6 years ago, a group of us sensed a call from God to live out Christian community in a common neighborhood in the east end of Richmond, Virginia. Some of us were transplants, some of us grew up here, some were black, some were white. None of us really had an agenda or a plan. All we knew was that the gospel has the power to overcome divisions of race and class, and we wanted to commit to that gospel in a common neighborhood. Over time, God just began to do things. Friendships began to form, a tutoring, a housing ministry developed, groups began to take shape, and before long, God began to build a worshiping community. Initially, we began to worship just once a month, but eventually, with the help of Third Presbyterian Church, we started meeting weekly, and before we knew it, East End Fellowship was born.
On a typical Sunday, if you entered into East End Fellowship, it would seem like any traditional church. But our reality is what we have is a gathering of people that throughout the week have been living together to see Christ incarnate, transforming our community. And then we gather on Sundays and worship that incarnate King.
I believe we have a vision about what church is supposed to be, and that is a community of people learning to walk together in Jesus Christ. Instead of a time or a space or a building, it's just that group of people.
I come to East End because of the community. I like the love and happiness is here.
So for us, the mission came first, the relationships came first, the neighborhood came first. The pastors, the worship service, the institution, we just sort of threw all that stuff in at the end. And we think that is a pretty good way to do it. At least that's the way God did it with us.
Did you notice what came first for this worshiping community? Mission to others, relationships among themselves and those who came, and the neighborhood where they were located. The Reverend Roger Dermondy, Deputy Executive Director for Mission of the PCUSA, was with us in Charlotte last week, and he told us this part about just throwing in at the end all that stuff about pastors and worship and institutions wasn't exactly how it really happened, but nevertheless, this focus on mission, relationships, and neighborhood is not only giving rise to new worshiping communities, it also is revitalizing established congregations. And I think we have a great deal to learn here. The same excitement and focus behind these new worshiping communities are the very same things revitalizing and growing existing churches. And I really believe Fort Street is in a wonderful, wonderful position to be transformed and to engage in transformational ministry. For established congregations like Fort Street, having a sole focus or even a primary focus on just getting more members most likely will result in continued decline in membership and in giving. It's about mission, it's about relationships, it's about neighborhood. If we focus on the heart of the gospel, if we focus on what we are learning about how to be church in our time and develop a willingness to really get involved faithfully and risk and experiment with new things, that's going to do at least three things for us. First, we are being faithful to the living Christ. If that's all we're doing, we're being faithful to the living Christ. Second, we will be transformed. Now, we might have to ask ourselves, are we really ready to be transformed? Do we want to be transformed? We may have to answer that question. And third, as a byproduct of our faithfulness, we will grow, probably in numbers, but certainly in our walk with Jesus. So what are some of the key elements for renewal here in this place? Looking outward, they seem to be focusing on and trusting the power of the gospel, commitment, real, solid, active commitment to loving our neighborhood, and a calling to heal the city. Among ourselves right here at Fort Street, perhaps some other things are crucial. We have to be community with one another, sharing the reality of our lives throughout the week, not just those few times we show up on Sunday morning, but being community and sharing the reality of our lives throughout the week. And we need to come together for worship. That means you actually have to show up. You actually have to be somewhere in the building around 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, or you are missing out on one of the very important aspects of our lives together as Christians. Now, I want to share with you another story of a new worshiping community. This one is Northland Village in Los Angeles.
3 years ago in Northeast Los Angeles, 10 friends started gathering for dinner to begin dreaming about what a church might look like focused on reconciliation. We had come to understand that an unusually high percentage of people in our neighborhood had become disenfranchised with the church, and we felt a strong call to come alongside them to become agents of reconciliation. By the fall, we began meeting as Northland Village Church, and we dedicated ourselves to meeting the needs of our neighborhood.
One of the things I love about NBC is that they're so involved in the community. If they're not involved in each of the events that go on, they're running the events, and so they're part of what makes this community thrive.
As the co-chair of the neighborhood council here in Atwater Village, a huge part of our job is always looking for volunteers, searching out volunteers. And when Nick and Northland Village Church came to Atwater Village, it was like this army of volunteers. These energetic, amazing people showed up. And no matter what we asked them to do, Nick always said, "You got it."
Today we hold worship services in a local elementary school auditorium, not for convenience sake, but because it helps us better integrate with the neighborhood. We love to host community events such as the Art Walk, our Brewfest series, and our Simplicity Sale.
The folks in the church have jumped into our community in ways that I didn't realize that they would be willing to do. They come every single day and tutor our kids in the classroom. The relationship that they have with our students and our school has been absolutely wonderful to see.
I love the intimacy of the community, how it feels like when you walk in, you're walking into somebody's home.
The people are authentic, real, and they accept you just the way you are.
It's humbling to see what God's been doing, not only reconciling people to God's self, but to others. And the best part is, we're just getting started.
Many of those disenfranchised by the church are living very near this building. In fact, some of those disenfranchised by the church and disenchanted by the church might actually be members of our church and might even be here in this room this morning. They are young and old, with money and without, academically educated and not so much. What if we came alongside them in ways they could actually understand? Not pushing church, but came alongside them in ways they could actually understand, in ways they could actually relate to. I wonder what would happen if, like the church in the video, we focused on reconciliation within our own community and with those who have given up on church or those who have always been unchurched, relating to them on their terms, not on our terms. Their terms, not ours. One of the phrases that was new to me last week was called exegeting the community. When one of these new worshiping communities begin, they can get some seed money to get started, but they have to meet some certain criteria. And one of the things they have to do between that first phase of funding and the second phase is exegete the community. They have to go out into the community and find out what's going on. Basically, it means intentionally going out into the community, discovering who the people are, discovering what their needs are, and then thinking through which of those needs and in which ways we might be able to work to meet those needs we're willing to commit to. If we began focusing on meeting the needs of people in the neighborhood, where might this take us? If we begin to become less focused on ourselves and build more partnerships with groups in Detroit that are doing other things, how far and how powerful might our reach become? Now, during our last session meeting, a little bit earlier this month, we were focusing for a time on concerns about our Fort Street congregation. And one of your elders said, "We need more joy at Fort Street." Did you feel the joy in these two videos of the people coming together for worship and being together throughout the week in community? Did you feel that? Did you feel the joy of these new worshiping communities? If we became more authentic, a more genuine, real, accepting, loving community, maybe the joy would follow. Maybe others would be so drawn to this joy that they just couldn't stay away, at least if we let them know we're here and what we're doing. So this week, I'd like you to think about community. In particular, I invite you, every single one of you, to think and to pray about our community here at Fort Street and the Detroit community outside our doors. I'm encouraging you to think and to pray about what you can do to help revitalize our Fort Street faith community, what you can do to help heal the city of Detroit, and to build community across the whole Metro Detroit area. Let me clarify. I'm not asking you to think about what someone else can do or should do. Not some other member of this congregation, not the session, not the pastor, not the city, not the mayor or the emergency manager, not the schools. You can't control what any of these people or institutions are going to do. But you can decide and take charge of what you will do. I'm inviting you, I'm encouraging you, I'm asking you, I'm imploring you to think about what you will do for Fort Street and for the people of Detroit. Now, I know some of you are tired. Some of you don't think you have any more to give. But we need everyone to do something. I need your help. The session needs your help. God needs your help. In a broken world, crying out for community, longing for justice and peace, in the midst of people longing for a place to belong, a safe place to be welcomed in and loved, the people of God need to step up to be the hands and feet and heart of the living Christ. So I ask you to search your hearts and to pray each day this week about whether or not you are ready for the new building of community that God stands ready to do in our midst. Paraphrasing Dorothy Day, the quote that was on the front of your bulletin, we know, each one of us, we know the long loneliness of living without real community. At some time in our lives, we have experienced this loneliness, this longing. Others are experiencing this long loneliness right now. The living Christ has shown us love is the answer, and love is found in community. We all need community, real and genuine community. Others are looking for community, a place where they can really belong, be loved, and where they can contribute their own gifts. Now, my question is, are we really ready for this exciting way of life with Christ? Are we ready for community transforming us and transforming our city? Will you pray with me? Holy God, you love us with an everlasting love. You draw us into communion with you and with one another. Make us ready now, ready, open, and eager to be community within this congregation and with everyone to whom you lead us. Fill us with the power of the gospel that we might transform the world. Amen.